What's up, you sweaty nerds and greasy degenerates? Silverwolf is getting a rerun in Honkai Star Rail in patch 1.5, so I thought it would be good to go over whether Silverwolf is still worth pulling for in this point in the game. Let's get into it. Alright, so first I want to put to question whether Silverwolf is really as good as people are saying that she is, or more importantly, whether Silverwolf is as necessary as a lot of people are making her out to be. Then, I want to show you guys an example in Memory of Chaos Stage 10 with a Silverwolf team versus another team where all I did was substitute out Silverwolf for a different 4-star character for comparison. Then we'll briefly talk about Silverwolf's abilities just as a little bit of a refresher for anyone that didn't already know what she does. And then at the end, kind of talk about certain synergies she has, certain things that she does, and give the overall consensus of, is Silverwolf really worth pulling for? Is she really that necessary at this point in the game? Alright, so let's compare Silverwolf's performance with Tingyun's performance. I decided to use a Jingliu team because she's very relevant, she's very meta, and a lot of people ended up pulling for her. I decided to use Tingyun as the comparison support against Silverwolf because I thought Pela might be a little too unfair because the enemies in Memory of Chaos right now are weak to ice, so I thought that would be a little too unfair to Silverwolf. And I didn't use Yukong or Bronya because Bronya I don't unfortunately have on this account, and Yukong's unfortunately just not as good of a support. So I thought Silverwolf and Tingyun would be a very good option here because most people have a Tingyun and an Eidolon Tingyun, so I thought this would be a good comparison to do. Tingyun gets this done a little bit faster than Silverwolf does, and she does it a lot more consistently and convincingly. Depending on what relic drops you have, you might even be able to clear this 2 cycles faster than Silverwolf did. On average, I cleared at least 1 cycle faster than Silverwolf, and I almost cleared it 2 cycles faster pretty convincingly. Silverwolf barely was able to do this 1 cycle slower than Tingyun was able to do. I used Asta as the control support because this Jingliu that I have is slightly slow, so Asta's there to give a speed buff to the entire team. She gives the speed buff evenly, she gives the attack buffs evenly, so she's the perfect support to do this testing with. I would like to point out that I used side 1 of Memory of Chaos 10 to do this testing because I thought it was a little unfair to Silverwolf to test against the Swarm because Tingyun gets a lot more out of her buff with Jingliu because she buffs Jingliu and Jingliu hits 3 enemies at a time. Silverwolf can only apply her debuffs 1 enemy at a time depending on how fast you clear. It just seems like Tingyun would get a little bit of an unfair advantage. So I used side 1. And again, Silverwolf didn't clear as quickly as Tingyun on average. I ran this test several different times to get a general average. On average, Silverwolf was 1 cycle slower than Tingyun, which isn't much, but it still matters. If you don't have as good of relic drops, yada yada, you might get 2 cycles slower. It just depends. But the average was 1 cycle slower. I would like to also point out that this test is by no means perfect, and I'm not claiming that it is. This is just a general idea of how Silverwolf compares to some of the other options that we have in the game for the support slot. Many would say, oh, Tingyun's one of the greatest supports for Jingliu, which would be true, but a lot of the other options that I had available to use for the test were also some of her best options, or I just simply didn't have them available. But this just goes to show how Silverwolf is not really necessary in a lot of situations, and most people already have a character like Tingyun. There are a lot of really great 4-star options we can use instead of Silverwolf, and I think this test does show that pretty well. Most people would have to pull a whole lot and use a lot of Jade to get a Silverwolf. Most people already have 4-star characters that can work just as well, if not better, depending on what team compositions that you have. That's all this test was there to do. So, is Silverwolf really as good as they say? Is she a must-pull? Is she a necessary character that every player in the game needs to have on their account in order to be truly viable in this game? Well, this might be a little bit controversial. I'm probably going to get some hate in the comments over this, but I'm going to say no. I think at this point in the game, there's so many great synergies that we have found with so many different team compositions and other characters that I don't think Silverwolf is quite as valuable at this point as she was back when she first came out. Now, at the same time, she is as good as people say, but she's not as necessary as a lot of people will make you believe. People like Tectone, for example, have copium over the fact that they didn't pull Silverwolf. And let's just be honest, guys, he's just joking around for the most part and having a little bit of copium because he wasn't clearing Memory of Chaos 10 as fast as a lot of other people were, and he needed an excuse. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Tectone, love the guy, he makes great content, yada, 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 you get the picture, no hate, no foul. But a lot of people were talking like that for so long that it actually got people to think that they have to have Silverwolf or their account is mid or something, which is just not true. Look at some of the best team compositions for certain main DPS characters, and a lot of the best performing teams don't even include Silverwolf despite her being an S+ tier character, and there aren't a lot of S+ tier characters in the game. Bronya actually happens to sit above Silverwolf on many of those best team compositions, for example, making Bronya arguably more important to have on your account than someone like Silverwolf. Alright, so we're just going to briefly go over what Silverwolf does, what her abilities are. I'm not going to deep dive her entire kit, that's not what this video is really about. But if you need to know more, you can just go to the data bank in game, click on the character, go to their traces, and you can see all of their abilities there for literally every character in the game. But Silverwolf is a sub DPS character that provides a noteworthy amount of damage of her own, while also providing a lot of utility to your team, typically in the form of debuffing the enemy. But what most people, in my opinion, pull her for is actually her skill, because her skill has the ability to apply weakness to the enemy based on the combat types of your team. So for example, if you have 2 ice types on your team and you have 2 quantums on your team, you have a 50-50 chance when you use her skill to apply either ice or quantum weakness to the enemy. This does not change if you have 1 ice on your team or 3 quantum. It will still be a 50-50 chance. So 1 to 3 and 2 to 2 would still be a 50-50 chance. However, you can manipulate this to a degree. For example, Silverwolf unlocks the mono quantum playstyle. She can only apply quantum weakness if every single member of your team has quantum. So this unlocks an entire team, an entire playstyle just because of this. Now, because Silverwolf is a quantum type character, she can only reliably do this with quantum. That's why she's either run most of the time as a dual combat team, meaning like 2 ice, 2 quantum, or 2 fire, 2 quantum, or 1 fire, 3 quantum, that kind of style. But sometimes people do run her with mono quantum. A lot of people say, I don't care about the weakness application that much. She's such a strong defense shred character through her ultimate, through her talent, and through her skill, that they don't care about the weakness application too much. If they get the weakness they want, cool, but that's not what she's there for. She's there as a very powerful boss debuffer, and then your main DPS just shreds the crap out of the boss. They don't necessarily care about the weakness application that much. Because of her versatility, that's why she, to this day, is considered to be an S+ tier character, because she's basically valuable on pretty much any account. If you have a Silverwolf, you're probably running her on at least one of your teams. And so that's why a lot of people see a lot of value in her. So, is Silverwolf as good as they say that she is? Yes. She's a great sub DPS character that provides debuffing effects, decent damage of her own, and weakness application. But do you need her? Is she a must pull? No. So should you pull Silverwolf? Well, that's really up to you, but you don't need her. There's a lot of really great options, and some of those are at the 4-star level. So you can save a ton of Jade and pull for something else coming in the future if you don't pull for her. But you have to make the best decision for your account based on what you think. I'm just here to give you some information so that you can make an educated decision of your own. So if this video is helpful to you in any way, shape, or form, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, because if you do, Silverwolf might let you touch her butt. Anyways, peace out.